Hey, everybody, this is Jake from the Pause Up podcast. As I'm sure you've probably been able to tell, there's been no new episode of the Pause Up podcast this week, unless you count that Pause Up preview that myself, Kevin, and Johnny worked on for FIU baseball. The reason that there's been no new episode of the podcast this week is because we've been wanting to work on a few projects behind the scenes as the spring semester starts to close down for FIU athletics. And one of those projects is what you're hopefully about to see that I've been wanting to work on for a while. It's related to episode 59 of the Pause Up podcast featuring FIU linebacker Reggie Peterson, which received a lot of positive reception, and we can't thank you guys enough for that. The thing that you might not have been able to tell about that episode was that it was actually pre-recorded a few hours in advance of when it was dropped back on May the 9th at 8 o'clock. And because of that, it raised a problem for us because pre-recorded episodes of the podcast have to be an hour or less because of regulations on videos posted on our social media platforms such as Twitter or X, Facebook, and YouTube. And there was well over an hour of content from that episode when we originally recorded it. Reggie Peterson, he's a great guy. We already love him, and we already love what he can bring to the show. We want to bring him back on. However, there were three questions from the original recording that we had to cut in order to make sure that the finished product was under an hour. And I felt it was kind of an injustice because those were three solid questions asked by myself, Kevin, and Johnny, and some amazing responses given by Reggie. So I thought I would go ahead, edit the original recording, add those three questions that never saw the light of day into this video so you all can check it out and see even more from episode 59 that was never originally posted. So hope you like it, enjoy, and pause up.
Yeah, you had mentioned losing a lot of offers. I'm kind of just looking at the recruiting profile. You still had an ACC offer from North Carolina, a couple FCS, and then there's FIU. How tough was it to see those offers go? You kind of mentioned it a little bit, and then do you still carry that chip on your shoulder every single day? You kind of mentioned it. And, funny enough, we're going to ask you that same thing. So just to follow up on that.
Yeah, so I would say it was very hard for me in high school. Oh, my goodness. Just having so many schools, a bunch of ACC. I didn't really have SEC, but ACC come see me. And the only reason why I had North Carolina because I went to the camp and had 3 interceptions and one-on-one drills. And I want to say I didn't know what a GA was at the time, and one of their GAs told me, "Hey, they're looking to give you a scholarship." So that's when they told me that. That was my first one. I was crying. I think the video's on Twitter somewhere. I'm on Twitter crying, like thanking the coaches and things like that. And a week later, not a week later, just I haven't talked to them since. And a week later, my coach tells me, he like, "Yo, if I were you, like I should have told you this was your first one. You don't know how it goes, but they have 12 commits right now, and like 7 of them are in your position, so they're not looking for anybody else. So you lost your offer." I'm like, in a week? And my coach is like, "This is cutthroat." Like he was like, "This is cutthroat," and I'm like, wow. I'm like, oh my goodness. Wow. And just going from like all the interest that I had my senior year, imagine just getting called out of class, oh, bring Reggie Peterson down here. And my teacher was one of the biggest college football fans. She was an Iowa fan. She was like, "Oh, Iowa's here. I'm praying that you go to Iowa." Iowa was not, there was not going to offer me. Coach Copeland at Iowa, he said no. I got a list. Abdul Hodge from South Dakota, he said no. Like, it's a lot. So, and one thing that I do, I write those coaches' names like on a whiteboard in my room. I just time like look at it, and I try to do my research. And I'm like, okay, like all right, we go against him. Like Arkansas was a big game because not because it was SEC. My D-line coach was there, Deke Adams. Deke Adams was there, and he was the D-line coach at FIU to Arkansas. And one thing about Deke Adams, he's a respectable man. Like, I respect him. But one thing about him, he's going to give his opinion. And he told me, he said, "Hey, Reggie, go look for a job. You are not a college football player." Wow. So, and he told me down in my exit meeting, he was like, "I don't feel like you're physical enough to be a D lineman." I'm like, "I'm not a D lineman. I'm a linebacker." But we got like 12 linebackers here with Coach McCray and Butch Davis. We got like 12 linebackers here. So they moved me to D-line. And I just remember he told me that. And he told me word for word, he was like, you'll never play for me unless you start on all 4 phases of special teams. And my freshman year of 2020, 2021, and 2022, I was a special teams captain. So I finally made all 4 phases, and I'm like, hey, coach, like, hey, you said if I can start on all 4 phases, I can play defense now. And he's like, no, you're a special teams guy. I said, I've been a special team guy for 3 years now. Like, let me prove to you that I can. And and then the first game was FAU week. It was FAU week, and
Oh,
the starter
yeah.
Ty Danzy got hurt. Then Shaquem Pace, he transferred now. He's no longer here, but he didn't really know the play, so I was a third string rush. And yeah, in that first play of the game, I got a TFL on Perry, N'Kosi Perry, the quarterback, and
Yeah.
he opened his eyes. He was like, okay, well, I like, you know. So from that FAU game, then transfer all the way over to this Arkansas game. I knew he was over there. So my mindset, I'm like, oh, he's one of the coaches on my list right now. I'm like, okay, I gotta show him. I gotta show him. So
A big
I think
game too.
yeah. So I finished that game with 13 tackles, a sack, and 2 TFLs that game. And he get on. That's I think one of the best feelings is one of the coaches that told you no. He came to me after the game and he literally looked at me with a face and was like, "I'm sorry, like I'm sorry." And that was one of the best feelings that I ever had. I gave him a hug and I was like, "Don't be sorry, like because of you, you the reason why I just played like this my first SEC game and because of you." I'm pretty sure, like people telling me, I just got put on just now. Like people's knowing my name now because of this game, and I thank you for that. You didn't play me for a reason for like 2 years, and that led to this now. So yeah.
Wow.
I know you talk a little more about it, but what made the decision to come to FIU and take that chance to be a walk-on offer and keep that, and also being able to stay in the state of Florida, not too far from home, but just kind of having that chip on your shoulder as you talked about, and eventually being able to get a scholarship later on. But what was that like to come to FIU?
So coming to FIU was amazing. At first, I was planning on trying to walk on at NC State because the Virginia Tech coach, Coach Wiles, he left Virginia Tech to NC State. So I was
Okay.
texting him like, "Hey, I'm trying to walk on." And he was like, "Oh, I'm pretty sure we can give you a walk on. We can give you a walk on tryout over here." And and at first, this is hilarious. I did not know about FIU. I did not know about it. I promise
Wow.
you, the only time I heard about FIU was when this girl in my class randomly, they was like, "Tell me your future." Like, my teacher was like, "Tell me what's your dream school, what's your dream skill." And this might be depressing, but I was the biggest U fan. I was a Miami Hurricanes fan, the biggest. Like
Kevin, do the thing.
My
Come on,
room.
Reggie.
Yeah, I know. I was the biggest U fan, and because I used to text Manny Diaz. Yes, I used to text Manny Diaz, and one day Manny Diaz was texting, and another day he wasn't. So, and I was the big. That was the first. The U was the first school who to ever recruit me. Like they was the first school that I ever had. Yeah, FIU. So the University of Miami was the first school to like my freshman year in high school was the school to look at me and like, all right, this guy, he's a freshman, he's like a 6'2" freshman playing safety at the time because I was a safety. So so I was gonna walk on to NC State and then I lost touch with Coach Wiles and I remember 2 days before signing day, Coach DJ McCarthy texts me and he's like, "Hey, I see that you need a place to walk on at," and I'm like, "Yeah, I got nowhere to go. Like, I got nowhere to go." He was like, "I'm gonna talk to Coach Butch Davis," and I did not know who that was at all. I'm like, "Who is that?"
At all.
I know. I'm like, I don't. I was like, okay. So, and he calls me. He's like, "Yo, give me your number." He's like, "We just ran out of scholarships today, but we want to give you a PWO." I don't know what a PWO is at the time, so I just tell without even letting my mom know. I'm like, "Yes, we're gonna take it." So I don't even know what a PWO is, and so I tell my mom. My mom's like, "They give you scholarship?" I was like, "No, something called a PWO," but and then my mom's like, we gotta come out of pocket." I'm like, "Do we?" I'm like, "For real?" I'm like, "Where is FIU located?" And it's like Miami. It's in Miami, and I do my research and I find out who Butch Davis is. I'm like, wow. I'm like, okay, so
You're
this
like
is yeah. So I'm like,
Legit.
this is a big deal. I'm like, this is a big deal. Okay, I'm like, all right. So Division One, FBS. So I say yes to the coach. My mom say yes, but my mom tells me, hey, like, we can only afford a year. Like, you only got a year. I'm like, dang. So I do my research and I'm asking coaches. And they're like, hey, like, it takes a minute to get a scholarship at any
Yeah.
school. So it takes like 3 to 4 years. So I'm like, dang. So I was like, well, let me at least get the experience. But my mom was like, you gotta go to FIU with the mindset as in to like feed your family, like. So
Yeah.
a day before signing day, the University of Bucknell calls me, all the way in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
Bucknell calls me, and Bucknell gives me a full ride scholarship.
Hmm.
And so and so and it's all the way in Pennsylvania. And I will never forget this phone call. I'm not gonna say the coach's name because I'm good friends with him, but the
Okay.
University of Bucknell, he says, we're gonna give you a scholarship. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. But I'm like, you guys gave me a scholarship 3 months ago, but it was a partial. It was a partial scholarship. It was like, hey, we see you got nobody. We want to give you a full ride scholarship. So I told him, I'm kind of having trust issues right now because you were able to leave me. You took away because they took away the partial scholarship and I had nobody. And then they
Wow.
came back at the end giving me a full ride. So I was like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of having trust issues right now. I think I'm gonna walk on to FIU. And he says, are you crazy? You're gonna turn Barack Obama plays basketball down the street with us. Like you're gonna say no to Bucknell? And he was just like snapping on me. He was like, this is good. This is probably gonna be the worst decision of your life. I want you to know that this is gonna be the worst decision of your life choosing FIU over us. And the next day I signed my letter and I was at FIU. So that was
Hell
the whole
yeah.
start. Yeah.
And speaking of knowing people, if you had to name a few players on the defensive side of the ball for FIU, whether they're returning players, additions from the transfer portal, or some newcomers in their freshman season that you feel like both fans and scouts alike should really pay attention to this season, who would they be? Like, give me three. Give me three off the top of your head.
Oh, oh.
Maybe guys who
I would
aren't being
say,
spoken of.
I would say, Shamir, the safety. Shamir, the safety.
Uh-huh.
He's a great safety. He's a great safety. A freshman, and I'm not being biased. I know he's from my city. He's from Port St. Lucie, but I promise you, I didn't even know that until he committed. I did not know that.
Okay.
I saw him balling in practice. I'm like, yo, like, where's he from? And Keegan, another dude from 772. He's like, he's from my high school. I'm like 772 in the house is Eaton. We're Eaton. Like, you can't tell me we're not Eaton. So he's one of them. That guy can play. If you guys would just come to you saw in the spring and he got an interception. He makes crazy catches all the time, like all the time. So he's one of the guys just off rip. So let's talk about another defensive player who stands out. And without me being biased, because I would love to say any inside backer's name. And you said from this spring, I could say what they did this spring or going to this season.
You could do whatever you want.
Because the spring, because anything can happen. We still got fall camp, so the roster's not really set yet. So I'm not going to talk about this like to looking forward to them for this fall. But we're gonna talk about this spring. If I had to say people from the spring on our defense, it definitely have to be Shamir. Shamir is one of them.
Okay. Well, that's perfect. I mean,
Two more without being biased. Without being biased, two more.
Reggie,
I
this
would,
might be something we have to come back to at a future time just to get your bearings.
no, because I don't want to be biased. You gotta understand, I'm cool with everybody. Like
Okay.
I'm cool with everybody. I would have to say, I gotta start playing football, dude. I'm literally forgetting how this spring just went. Um, let's look on the D line. that's being biased too. I can't say Keegan. Keegan had one of the best springs he ever had, averaging like 3 to 4 sacks of practice. So I can't say
that's
Keegan
a good one
Davis.
to mention.
That's great.
That's Keegan Davis, Heatland. We do grades. He graded out the highest every time.
right.
Okay. So I'm not gonna be biased. So I don't know if you guys want to keep Keegan Davis in there because that would be biased if I said it. But he honestly had one of his best spring practice, so he will be on my list. But
There we go. So one more.
Geo for UTM, a rush that we have. His pass rushing is remarkable. Like you already know, I'm big on pass rushing. Like if you're gonna play rush and I'm in the wheel, yeah, I'm gonna need some pressure on the quarterback so I can go get an interception real quick.
Yeah.
So Geo pass rushing. So I'm gonna try to do each position. So Geo pass rushing. So that's D line. I'll go with D line. I said Shamir safety without being biased from this spring. Nickel. Everybody know about Potts. But I'm gonna say a nickel that stood out to me was Bobby Sala. We moved Bobby from safety to nickel, and I think that is one of the best things that we ever did. And there's no disrespect to Bobby at safety. He just never knew that he could play better at another position. So Bobby at nickel, he's built like a linebacker, but he's fast like a safety. So I was like, that's one of the best things that Coach DeWitt did was put Bobby at the nickel. And Bobby is one of the guys who had a great spring at nickel. Let's move to the inside backers. I would say one. If I could choose one, it's definitely Travion Barnes. Travion Barnes is
There you go.
one of the linebackers.
Yeah.
Travion Barnes is, and I hate it, but I love it at the same time because he's my roommate. But the thing is, he also plays the same position as me, so I do not slack off. I'm like, no, no. I'm about to go get this extra work in because Coach DeWitt loves competition. And he was like, hey, Reggie, I'm not gonna put Travion at the mic. I'm gonna put Travion at will so you can work harder.
Yeah.
And we need the best season that you ever like. If you want to get drafted, Reggie, we're gonna put Travion Barr on you. I'm like, all right, bet. But Travion can flat out play. Travion can play.
Yeah.
And corners. From this one. I'm gonna say Brian Blades. So I just did each position for you. Brian Blades.
There we go.
There we go.
Honorable mention.
Okay.
Keegan, but he wouldn't be an honorable mention because that would have been biased. I'm gonna just put him in honorable mention, but he would have been on the list.
That's fine.
Keegan had one of the best, and I would say Percy Courtney because how versatile he is.
Okay.
Percy Courtney, the inside linebacker, he can play Mike and Will. Percy can play. So whenever I go down, he hops in. Whenever EA go down, he hops in. Percy Courtney can do both. And another honorable mention who has a crazy story that nobody knows about is Dwight Nunu, the Mike linebacker.
All right.
Him playing inside that box after having a torn ACL, as big as he is and running fast as he is, you guys, his story is gonna shine one day. So I can't wait for you guys to know his story. But his ability to, after tearing an ACL and knowing how to fill a gap and knowing how to play Mike, yeah. So these JUCO guys ain't playing around. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, yeah.
And it sucks for the high schoolers, bro. It really sucks. This transfer portal really messed it up for the high schoolers.
I know.
Yeah, they're not in JUCO just because they were some people say dumb or not good enough. There's a lot of guys who got missed out, and they're here to play. So yeah, those that's my list, man. That's my list.